Hey, this is Rob Anspach, and welcome back to another edition of eHeroes for those keeping count. This is episode 364, and I've talked about SEO on this show. I've talked about GEO, which is generative engine optimization, but my next guest is the queen of CRO, which is conversion rate optimization. So I want to welcome Amanda Dobson to the show, and Amanda, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I mean, 364. You can listen to one episode of your podcast every day for a year and never run out of something new.
Or just binge listen every single hour.
And you should. You should listen every hour, everybody.
It's this podcast started in 2018 as just a way for me to give back to entrepreneurs. This year is my 30th anniversary as an entrepreneur, and so the journey has been long, sometimes not profitable. And there's years where the money just flows in like it's just very easy. But this year has just been surprisingly difficult for a lot of entrepreneurs, and they call me and they'll say, "What am I doing wrong?" And sometimes they're not doing anything wrong. And then there's other days where everything that they have that they're doing should just be trashed, start over. And I think that's the biggest fear right now is,
Mm,
should I start over? And
yeah.
I saw stuff that you were posting, and I thought, yeah, I got to get you on the show because the things that you do are different. They're I think they help open eyes, and they get entrepreneurs to think in a different way. And yes, I've talked about search engine optimization. I've talked about GEO, and those are important. But what you do, conversion rate optimization, I think every single business needs to pay attention.
Yeah, and it's really interesting when people think conversion rate optimization, they immediately jump into the tech side of things. And we were before we started recording, you and I were having an interesting conversation just about the humanity in marketing. So yes, what I do is equal parts technical, page load times and the technical elements on the page and working within tech platforms and utilizing data. But the flip side of that, and what I feel like I come across more often than not, is that offers are designed to reach algorithms. They're
Mm.
designed to fit the tech, forgetting that there's another person on the other side of the screen. So I learned a couple of really valuable lessons really early on in my career that have just kind of stuck with me throughout. And one of those was, and this was a big one for me in a lot of different ways, but is you are not your customer.
Mhm.
So when you have a product or an offer, you are looking at that product and offer from your lens. The best thing you can do for yourself is, erase your level of understanding of your product, of your offer, and look at it as a customer and as a prospect. We can do a lot of this with AI, and we can talk about that a little bit on the podcast today. But AI in and of itself causes or can bring about a couple of interesting challenges. So it's a really interesting balance between leveraging the tools that we have with the understanding of how humanity, like how we make decisions, how we are influenced, how, what our thought processes look like, how we communicate, all of those things. So I think that that is, a really great conversation to be having. And I think that there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that are asking you, I'm doing everything technically correct. I've checked all the boxes. I have my ducks in a row, and they're wondering what they're missing. And a lot of times, when I'm looking at landing pages or offers, I'm like, you've got all the technical elements here, but who are you talking to? Do you know what keeps them up at night?
Mhm.
So yeah, I think that's a really great jumping point for us.
Well, during COVID, I had a series of books called Rob Versus, and it was my take on dealing with scammers and morons and lousy customer service. And one of the books in the series was Rob versus Humanity. And during COVID, everybody lost their frickin' minds. You know, companies were doing stupid shit, and it was like, this is my answer to getting people back on track, to getting them to think about their human side.
Mhm.
And people would call me up and say, "Rob, you suck. I don't like this book." I was like, "It's a funny book. It's got sarcasm." And it's like, no, that people lost their ability to laugh. They didn't understand sarcasm. And I was like, this is who I am. This is what I bring to the table. And we talked about this off air 25 years ago, 30 years ago when I became an entrepreneur. I was very stiff, I was walking on eggshells. I was very PC. And I was like, I can't do this. I can't hide behind, what people want me to be versus who I am. And so I embraced my sarcasm. And the more I did, yes, it triggered people that I shouldn't have ever dealt with. But the people
That
who
is
love sarcasm, they would embrace it. They would hire me. They would spend more money. And it was because they were getting the real, the raw, the true Rob instead of this facade that hide behind, excuses and
I
yeah,
definitely resonate with that. That has been a big trend for me lately. And the interesting kind of irony of that is, we talk about authentic marketing and being ourselves when it's like at our very core, uh, there's a lot of marketers out there, and I'm one of them for a really long time that was not authentic to myself in my marketing and who I was attracting and who I was wanting to work with. And instead of creating freedom for myself, I created a cage. I
mhm,
created an identity. I created, a persona that people expected me to be. And it's only been, since the beginning of this year when I've kind of just taken the shackles off myself and just I've started to be funny and witty and sarcastic, and it's brought in clients that are amazing to work with. People, I've just created deeper connections with people because like before people never, like if you knew me 5 years ago, you don't know me now. You knew a very curated, well manicured, like PC version of me that was afraid to speak my mind, that was afraid to be controversial, that was, afraid to call out the things that I was seeing in the market that weren't true. Like you see a lot of stuff behind the scenes when you work for, some of the bigger names in the industry. You kind of see the realities of their businesses.
mhm,
And, I stood by for a long time where they're going on stage and talking about how amazing their businesses are and sharing numbers. And I'm like, I know none of that's true. Like, that's just
mhm,
not accurate. And I stood by for a really long time, and now it's like I'm not that person anymore. Now
right,
it's like, I can't help people that don't show me the real them. I
mhm,
can't help you if I don't know the real numbers behind your business. I can't help you if I don't know who your real avatar is. So it's just, I just think it's ironic because as marketers, we expect the businesses we work with to be authentic in their marketing. And in our, I struggled a lot with that, with,
yeah,
especially like coming into the marketing industry. I was, a 22-year-old female, blonde hair, blue eyed Canadian girl, walking into masterminds that are all the OGs in marketing. And it was amazing. That opportunity, gave me a foundation in my career. It's the network that I still leverage to this day, like friends that I've made, through that have kind of carried me through my whole career. But like that, like I learned at that point that I couldn't be myself in that room
mhm,
without having the, now that like I've got, the knowing and the liking and the trusting of the people in those groups, I can be a little bit sillier and I can be like my authentic self now. But that girl was terrified.
yeah. Well, and I want to talk about our mutual friend that we lost a while back, Steve Sims, and I met Steve through an accident through Joe Polish. Now Joe didn't know because Joe had interviewed Steve and posted it on social. This was back in 2015, and I saw the video and I thought, oh, who is this Steve guy? And I didn't even have this podcast at the time. I just wanted to interview Steve. So I emailed him and he goes, "Yeah, let's do it." Just what? And just knowing that he this persona of this man wanted to be interviewed by me, this guy out in redneck city, and we became fast friends, and so I went out and visited him. I went to his book signing party in Hollywood in 2017, and it was great. But a lot of people that meet Steve for the first time, they think, He's so intimidating, you know?
Yeah. Not
But
me.
but
My first time the first time I ever met Steve, I said, "This is my people."
yeah, and Steve opened up, I think, an avenue through for marketers to be able to speak their truth. Yes, it was something that people always said to do, but because Steve is saying it and he's this big burly guy with a British accent, and getting up on stage and just cursing and letting people know, I think that shock value kind of changed the industry a little bit, and
Yeah.
and so more people were taking that advice and opening up a little bit better and letting their personality shine. And I wish he was still here. I really do. I didn't get a chance to say goodbye,
There are
but
a lot of days there are a lot of days where I wish I could pick up the phone.
mhm,
You know, Steve's one of those people, he was like, "Look, I'm not your therapist, but I'm here to give you the kick in the ass when you need it." And I would literally text him being like, "Kick in the ass needed." And anytime I even remotely, was struggling and feeling sorry for myself, he would bring me right back to reality. Like, this is an opportunity. You're looking at this wrong. Like, he was people expected him to be that, like, kind of, like, give no fucks kind of attitude, but that really wasn't him at all. He was just a pusher, he
mhm.
just wanted you to persevere, at any cost, and I love his son Henry, and I hope that, that that the family's doing really well, but yeah, Steve's just irreplaceable,
Yeah,
to
and
me.
every time I would write a book and send him a copy, and he'd pose with it and send it back, and it was like, who else does that?
Yeah,
Nobody else takes the time to honor you in such a way. And so
yeah.
Steve was not only a pusher, but he was also he gave from his
He's a
heart.
true cheerleader. He was a cheerleader for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, I do feel sorry for everyone that never got the chance to work with Steve. That was,
Mhm,
I learned a lot from Steve. I hired him through his one of his coaching programs and worked with him for a year. And what I set out to do inside of the coaching program, you know, was not even what we ended up accomplishing, but what I got out of it was so much more than
mhm,
that. So, it was the kind of the catalyst for me coming out of my shell, to be
mhm,
honest. Like, he was just like, "Why can't you be this person to everybody else? Why did I have to spend months getting to know you and, getting to know what's important to you and your family and, like, the things that you're doing in your career? Like, why are you depriving everybody else of that?"
mhm.
Like, well, I was too scared of what people would say. I was scared of the criticism. I was scared of the feedback, and, I never wanted to look stupid, and now I realize that, like, in and of itself made me look stupid. So,
But both of us have been playing the long game. I've been doing, like I said, I've been an entrepreneur for 30 years. My agency will be 25 years old, and next, in January 2026. And before that, I had a cleaning business that overlapped my consulting, and I had that for 19 years. And that's where I met Joe Polish. That's where I met Dan Kennedy. And people say, "Well, Rob, how does carpet cleaning have anything to do with marketing?" A lot of those skill sets, a lot of the skill sets that I learned in carpet cleaning still apply, today. And without that encouragement, without that push, without meeting Joe, without meeting all these other people, would all these books in the background have ever been written? Probably not.
yeah. That is the butterfly effect, right? Like,
Mhm.
I had no intention of ever getting into marketing, and if you had ever were to ever tell me that I was self-employed or ran a business, I would have told you you were crazy. I was never that kind of person. I was always play it safe, be protected, get a job, have a stable job, and then you kind of hit a point in your life, well, at least I did, where I just, like, it was an illusion, the idea, like, my marriage fell apart. I realized that the jobs that I had weren't stable, and then it was just like the only person that I could actually trust was me to
Mhm.
be able to provide and do the things that I needed to do. And when I realized that how ridiculous it was to be an employee of someone else and put all of my trust in them, is now scary to me. That it's like, I'm not scared of being self-employed. I'm scared of being employed because I know I can control an outcome. I don't want someone else to control my outcome.
Yeah, yeah, and when I first became an entrepreneur back in '95, people thought, it's just Rob going through a phase. he'll go back to work for someone else, and I'm like, "I don't think so."
I can't imagine going back. I mean,
Hmm.
I got into
No,
one before.
and because I'm so sarcastic, because, I am, I'm set in my ways. I know what works, I know what doesn't work, and I've gone into companies because they hire me, and I've told them straight out, "That's a stupid idea, don't do that." And if I was an employee, I'd probably be fired, but
They pay for your brain, you're doing I had a conversation with a business owner, it's one of my clients recently, and I just said, "Look, I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't tell you that the problem in your business right now is not your marketing, it's not your offer, it is the ownership of the business and from the top down."
mhm,
It is the communication and the inconsistency from the top down. You are losing star employees that like are the ones keeping you rolling, and you're keeping the trash. And I would like you can be mad at me for saying it if you want, but if I didn't tell you, I wouldn't be doing my job. There's a reason you brought me here.
mhm.
So those are fun conversations we get to have.
Well, and we get to do things, I think, that normal employees don't get to do. We get to work whenever we feel like it. We have freedom to do whatever we want, and that's why I became an entrepreneur. It wasn't for the money, it wasn't for the fame or the fortune, it was for the freedom.
We know now that the fortunes come and go,
Yeah.
in space. Nobody and that's when one of the big things, like, I started getting DMs when I started posting things that I was doing and, like, the success that I was having on Facebook, and, I started getting DMs like, "Congratulations, like, this is so long overdue," and it's like, you know I think I would be doing a disservice to all of the other entrepreneurs out there if I didn't tell you the failures that went into this. For
Mhm,
every success I've had in my career, I've had 10 failures easily.
mhm,
And it's like you always like I've been so close to giving up so many times, and it's been like the Joe Polishes and the Steve Sims and like those like rock solid and the Dean Jacksons that are like keep going, that like kind of get you to that next win. But I think it's really important to share the losses as well, because we see, the big names in the industry that are constantly dominating our news feeds, and we just think like, wow, what a charmed life. I should be doing everything that they're doing because clearly it's working for them. And it's like, I see the flip side of that. It's like you don't see, they have a platform and they can choose what pieces that you see.
yeah.
You don't see the losses, and like you're seeing the rose colored glasses, and that's just not realistic. So I think like a lot of people give up too soon,
Oh,
and
and the thing is and this is what Joe told me, Joe Polish basically taught me long, long time ago. When I bought his initial marketing package, he says, "Don't copy word for word. Make it your own." So I had all this marketing. I'm thinking, what am I going to choose from? There's like 100 different things that I could do. He says, pick one, make it your own. And that's what I did. And that one thing converted my whole company, my cleaning company back then, into this killer marketing machine. And that's what I tell people now. Yes, you're going to see people like Alex Hormozy making billions of dollars, and that may look cool, and you may Russell Brunson with all those funnels and everything. And I'm not knocking those people. They've developed their system over years. But now you're going to come in and say, I'm going to copy that. But you're copying them. You're not making it your own. You're not saying, well, I'm going to take pieces of this and I'm going to convert it and I'm going to do this. No, you're just copying it. And then you're wondering why it doesn't work.
Well, I think there's an innate skill set there that doesn't get talked about a lot. And I used to talk to and Joe Schreifer, who used to run the copy team over at Agora Financial. I was their director of acquisition for a number of years. So we would work with the copy team, and we used to debate about this, whether you can train a copywriter to be an A-level copywriter with no experience. And my argument was always like, I believe that you can teach anybody the technical elements of writing copy. I
Mhm.
don't believe that everybody is born with the ability to create a big idea.
Right.
I don't know that you can create. I think that there's a finesse that goes into creating those hooks and leads, and that like that independent idea that's never been done before or repositioned in a new way. Not everybody has that. So I do think, you can give someone a package and be like, here's all the materials. and they don't have that ability to create the big idea, or maybe they do and it's just not as strong as in others. So the easiest thing to do is to copy. And I teach this a lot. I've got group coaching programs and newsletters, and I teach this all the time, that copying somebody else's business is one of the worst things that you can do, because you don't see the back end of that business.
Right.
You can't just, so I used to funnel hack all the time. I used to go through Facebook, I'd go through people's funnels, and I would be like, "Oh, let's copy this, or like create our own version of this because it's converting," assuming that it's converting. Now that I've been in so many businesses, I've optimized so many offers, like people are copying offers that aren't performing. Like
Right.
you're copying the losers because you don't have the data. And I hear it all the time. People, come back to me and they're like, "Well, they're still running it, so it must still be working." BS.
Yeah.
No, because a lot of times, I had a business owner who was running, 100, 200 grand worth of paid media through their offer, bragging about how profitable they were, and then didn't realize that their media buyer wasn't factoring in cost of goods
Hmm.
into their offer when they're selling a physical product. So they were massively backwards. So they're scaling an offer. Let me tell you, just because someone's running it doesn't mean it's working. You can look at, like, if anyone ever comes across any of my offers and you want to copy it, talk to me first so I can tell you at least which one's working, because I can tell you 60% of them out there aren't working. So,
Hmm.
that's the danger. So now it's go through other people's offers, funnels, landing pages, whatever you want to do, and find inspiration.
Yeah.
Make it your own, test it, don't make any assumptions, test it, then, make the next decision from that like new level of education.
Well,
Don't just blindly
it's
copy.
also based on the experience that a customer is going to get. Take, for example, McDonald's has millions of locations everywhere. They're franchises, and you're thinking, okay, well, what's the difference? McDonald's is McDonald's. But you go to one of these McDonald's in some backwater town, and it's crazy busy, and you have to wonder why when the one that's in the most populated area is about to close. And
And
it's
it's
the
usually because
experience that the employees are giving,
yeah.
and everything about that place just wants you just wanna go there. They got
Yeah,
fresh fries, they got whatever, but it just yeah.
yeah. There's places at like coffee shops around here, Tim Hortons, just saying, because I'm Canadian. I avoid specific ones because their drive-throughs are slower.
Mhm.
And it's like exactly what you said. It's like it's the user experience. It can be the same like the same franchise model, completely different experiences.
Well, the other day you had posted about 3 a.m. letter, and it got me curious. Can you share some insight on that?
Yeah. So, AI is the big buzzword, right? Everybody is, trying to find the best and easiest ways to leverage AI. And what I've noticed, and I can spot AI written copy from a mile away. Um, I have noticed that using AI is a great tool for optimization. A lot of people are using AI to optimize, to create new stuff. And what they're doing is they're going and saying, you know, pretend you're Russell Brunson and write me an offer for this product. So I've got a client right now that's in the adoption space. So I'll use that as an example. So, a less savvy marketer would go into chat gpt. Hey, you are, let's say John Carlton or Gary Halbert or Clayton Makepeace, or even some of the like more modern, you've got the Russell Brunsons and the Alex Hermosis or whatever. And you
Mhm,
say, be this person and create an offer for this product. You know, what you're going to get back is going to probably be technically correct. If you
mhm,
went through and analyzed the offer, you'd probably have all of the pieces that you needed to create a good offer. You've got your guarantee, your scarcity, your urgency, you've got your value stack, your benefits, your features, you've got a little bit of a story element, you've got all of the checkbox items that you need for an offer.
mhm,
What I find that AI is not good at and really holds entrepreneurs back is introducing that human element. Is that they think just because an offer has the compelling pieces to, convince someone to buy a product, they're not having a conversation that's going on with the customer. So, what I have aimed to do with AI and kind of how I look at AI differently than others is I actually look at it from the lens of the prospect. So, the first thing
mhm,
that I will suggest to a new client or to someone following me is create a GPT that is your avatar. Give
mhm,
them all of the information on, survey responses that you've gotten, polls, comments on your social media posts, customer support emails, your demographic data, load that into a GPT and create an avatar of your customer and
Yeah.
have that avatar review your offer and tell you all of the missing pieces. Because I can tell you 95% of the time, your level of understanding is different than their level of perception. So
Yeah.
when those two things don't meet, you're talking to a void. You're
Right.
talking to someone that's not having a conversation with you. So what I created for myself is what I'm calling the 3 a.m. letter. And all that is, it's very simple. And I'll read you an example. And I love this example because I created the best performing offer we've had in this business on the back of creating this letter. So I'll give you some context. What I am trying to do here is I'm creating a real human being with real emotions and human experiences, and I'm creating an offer that is talking specifically to this person. So I'm going to tell you what the prompt is to actually get the diary entry here. And then I'm going to tell you what to do with the diary entry before you start writing your next offer. So I'm going to dive into it. So just bear with me for a minute because it's a little bit of reading. So it's going to be just a couple minutes of me reading. So the prompt is um, you are a professional that is working in the adoption and foster space. You've had the worst day that you can remember in a long time, and you're feeling like giving up. I want you to write a diary entry in the middle of the night that is sharing the thoughts that you would be too scared to say out loud. And this part is really important because there are internal conversations that I have with myself I wouldn't have with my mom. I wouldn't have with my best friend. There are the things that keep me up at night. I'm not the type of person that would ever say those things out loud. Like I'll give surface level complaints and say like I'm having issues with this, and this, but that deep core like visceral fear that's in there and like the things that I'm actually thinking and feeling don't come out. And especially like in this example that I'm going to read, I'm going to come from the professional's perspective rather than the adoptive parent perspective. But on the adoptive parent side, a vast majority of adoptive parents regret adopting,
Mhm.
but they're terrified to say that out loud. They're afraid, they don't even let themselves think it, but it's what they feel. So our job as marketers is to use the tools we have to peel back that onion and acknowledge those thoughts and feelings without them ever needing to be said. So when you're writing an offer, it then becomes a conversation with their subconscious, the things that they're thinking and feeling without ever verbalizing, that makes the offer land. So following that prompt and you can customize it to yourself. And again, my prompts are never formulas. It's like I'm sharing thoughts
Mhm.
with GPT. So here's the output. It's 3:12 a.m. and I can't sleep. There's a pain in my chest that won't let me rest. I don't know if writing this down will help or make it worse, but I need to get it out of me. Today broke me in a way I didn't know I could still break. And I've been in this work for a long time. I've sat with shattered mothers. I've looked into the eyes of children who won't make eye contact, who have learned already, far too young, that adults aren't safe. I thought I'd built some kind of inner scaffolding to carry the weight of this, but today it all crumbled around me. This afternoon, I went into a family's home. The mom, her name was Sheila. She called me sobbing, saying she didn't know what to do anymore. Her son, Caleb, had attacked her with a broom handle. She used the word attack, not tantrum, not meltdown, attack. And when I walked into the house, I could feel it. The air was sharp. The house was quiet in that eerie post chaos way. She had locked herself in the bathroom until he finally stopped. He's 9 years old. He's been in 5 homes already. He came to her at age 6, terrified of showers, of loud noises, of being touched. He would flinch if you raised your hand too quickly. And Sheila, she really tried. She read the books, she did the trainings, she memorized the acronyms and went to therapy and cried in her car, and she stayed anyway. But trauma doesn't hand out thank you notes. Today, she told me through tears that she thinks she may not be the right mom for him, that she might have to disrupt the placement, that she's scared of him now. And the worst part, I understood her. I didn't try to talk her out of it. I just sat there with her. I held her hand and I told her the truth that love doesn't always feel good and that sometimes trauma makes home the scariest place for everyone involved. That this is what it means to parent in the aftermath of someone else's choices. But then something happened. Caleb came down the stairs quietly, and that's an AI tell, holding a sock monkey. He stood at the bottom of the step, his eyes red and puffy, and said, I didn't mean to scare her. His voice was so small, his hands were shaking, and in that moment, all I could think was, God, what are we asking of these kids? What are we asking of these parents? They're both drowning, they're both terrified, and somehow we've decided to let them figure it out together in the same boat with no oars and a hole in the bottom. I don't know if Sheila will keep him. I don't know if Caleb will ever feel safe enough to trust that love doesn't leave. And tonight I'm questioning everything. This work, it's brutal. It's relentless. It's holy. It's also thankless. It asks you to keep showing up when the story doesn't always have a happy ending. But here's the truth. Just before I left, Sheila knelt down and opened her arms. She didn't say a word, and Caleb walked into them like he'd been waiting all day to do it. They held each other like survivors because they are. That hug won't fix everything. Heck, I don't know if it's going to fix anything, but it was real and it was raw. And it was enough to remind me why I keep doing this, even when it breaks me. I'll sleep eventually, but for now, I'm letting myself feel it all, the sorrow, the rage, and the helplessness, and the quiet, and with the quiet, stubborn hope that somehow this all matters, even when it hurts. So let me tell you, a technically correct offer with this kind of emotional undercurrent, it's capturing not just the just absolute hopelessness of knowing that they are powerless in a broken system, of
Mm.
knowing that they're walking into these impossible situations, but then also giving those glimmers of hope. And that's what's important about the diary entry is that it's, you know, very it's emotional. I'm emotional just reading it, but it gives that piece of humanity so that when I go back and I write a new offer, when I'm writing a professional offer, I'm not writing to a demographic avatar. I'm writing to Karen who wrote this diary entry. I'm saying address her fears, bring forth her hopes. Let's encapsulate the conversation she's having and position the offer or the product that we have as a solution to these things. So, like, let's acknowledge the pain that she feels and inspire more of the hope that she feels in the offer. And I have found the vast majority of places where I've actually tested this, and this works in almost every market.
Mhm.
The vast majority of the tests that I've run using this, we've not just had more performance of the offer itself, but we've had more feedback from customers being like, "Wow, I finally hear this. Like I
Mhm.
finally feel heard." And if you actually go on my personal Facebook page, um, I did this right after I presented this to at Russell Brunson's event in Mexico. And the comments that I got back on the post, and it was just a Facebook post after doing the 3 a.m. Entry for myself. I started getting messages and text messages from friends being like, "Hey, I really resonated with this. Like, hey, why don't we do something together? Like, why don't we create like a social group where we're supporting each other?" And like it was just people started to recognize that like I was being vulnerable, but it was all AI generated, but it was just the first time in a long time that I feel like people really got to see who I was and what I was thinking and what I was feeling. And I had never had that much engagement outside of just comments and likes. Like it was text messages, phone calls, DMs that of people being like, "Hey, like I really resonated with that. I felt like you were talking to me." There's a few comments in the thread as well being like, "Hey, I feel like you're reading my mind."
Mhm.
Um, and that's exactly how you want your customers to feel seen and heard and understood and validated. And you want to move them closer to hope and give them, more of that. So, um,
You
I
know,
really encourage
and what you're
it's
saying is and I've been saying this for a long time, we all know, like, and trust, but during COVID, I came up with, we have to feel safe. And your 3 a.m. letter makes people not only feel vulnerable, they feel that humanity has a place now. They feel safe. And
yeah,
and everything that you're saying, it's emotional. But on the flip side, you got all these people now gravitating towards you. They want to learn this process. They want to capture that lightning in a bottle. They want to be able to take that out to the masses and say, look, I want to be vulnerable. I want humanity to see me.
yeah, absolutely. And there was I learned from Ryan Dice a really long time ago. I think it was Ryan anyway. That was like, people do business with people. They don't do business with businesses. So I think that, like, the marketers out there, even other CRO experts, they're so focused on the mechanics and the tech stack and the testing and all of those things. And it's just like we forget at the end of the day, like people are more than anything, the shift in the market is people are craving the community. They're craving connection more than any other time in, in modern history. And I think like I would almost go so far as to say, like, I think selling information is almost dead. I think selling community and connection and that understanding, the whole reason I created the 3 a.m. letter was because I was creating an inner circle offer for adoptive parents where they had a community. And I, had been previously dealing with the like, let's focus on the deliverables, like let's get them materials they can use to change their life. And I didn't really understand for a very long time that they didn't want materials. They didn't want, they really didn't want a information solution. They wanted to talk to other parents that were where they were. They wanted to know that they weren't the only ones having these 3 a.m. thoughts. They wanted to feel connected to something else that wasn't just their own grief. They needed something to pull them out of that. So now like the focus, in my agency and in my coaching offers is building community,
Mhm.
and always having a community element in your products and in your services that allow that level of connection. And it also, um, outside of that, it's the from the business perspective, it's also the stick, right? Like your community is your stick. People don't want to leave their friends. They want to be part of the Slack groups on their phone. They want to be in the WhatsApp groups. They want to be in the Facebook groups. They want to be engaged. They don't ever want to leave that stuff. So
Oh, I'm the
the
first one who
business
leaves. I just can't
well,
stand
I
it.
I feel like, again, you are not your market, you are not your lead. I think you need to have a podcast that's just you answering spam callers. Like,
Yeah,
just record it next time you're answering them and just post it on a TikTok channel. I promise you, you'll be viral.
71 calls yesterday. It was all spam.
Sir, you need to get a robo thing on your phone that kills robocalls.
But here's the thing with you, it's yes, it might have started out with conversion rate optimization, but it's transformed what you're doing, and it's bringing humanity back into business. So now you have community rate optimization, and I think and the connection is between them. So yes, what
I'm
started
gonna
out
steal
as
that, by
one
the way.
thing
That's
is now
fantastic.
helping another.
I'm stealing that community rate optimization. You're gonna see a Facebook post later today about that. That is gonna be that's my new slogan.
Because it bridges the gap between business and consumer.
Yeah.
And we as entrepreneurs, entrepreneurship is a lonely thing. You know, we make all the decisions, we do all the we pay everything. You know, some days I just want to I enjoy these podcasts because I get to interact with other entrepreneurs who are doing the same thing or feeling the same way. And so yes, for me, sometimes that connection is the greatest thing.
And it's even better when it's entrepreneurs that are, like, willing to mirror that level back to you. Like,
Mhm.
let me like, I've got a lot of friends in the marketing space, and they only ever wanna talk when they're winning.
I'm sorry.
It's just like, I'm the friend that you call when you're not winning. I can help you,
Right.
Like, I've got my own, skill sets and sets of experiences and, like, I never want friends to take advantage of it, with that, like, "Hey, can I pick your brain for 5 minutes every other day?" But, like, I wanna see my friends win. I wanna see my community win, That's why, like, I created the newsletter. That's a free newsletter. Like, that's the whole point. It's just, like, I want to pay it forward and share that, but I expect that back, like
Right.
I give what I want to get back.
Yeah.
We always give what we want to receive. But it's just like the people that know me the most and that that I've become the closest with are the ones that are like they call me when they're not winning. They
Well,
want
you
to
know,
share the
it's
wins and the losses.
as I said before, I created this podcast to give back, and all you see nowadays on Facebook is you have to have an ROI on your podcast, and everyone that I've discovered that has pushed that ROI has never gotten past 20 podcast episodes. You know, you do something because you want to do it. You do something because you feel good about doing it. It's not
Hmm.
always about the money.
Yeah,
And
I've
I
got to
think
start.
entrepreneurs need to understand that.
I started a group coaching program specifically for that. It's the most like It's the most work I do because I really give a lot in, like, my group coaching programs. Like, it's a one-hour call every week where we go through, like, deep dive offers, but in between, like, I'm giving, like, one-on-one consults and helping, and it's not at all about the money for me. It is the most validating, like, I like, just I'm beaming by the end of those calls, and usually like, it's a community effort. Like,
Mhm.
someone brings up an offer and the whole group goes through it and, like, gives feedback and some suggestions and, like, things that they've seen in their own businesses that might be helpful, and it's just like, I am it's aside from having kids, it's, like, the thing that I've done that I'm the most proud of because,
Mhm.
like, I created a business that I love, a business that is impactful for other people, and I've created a community of people that genuinely care about each other and
Mm.
want to see each other win, and that, like, that is the reason that, like, I haven't lost anyone, knock on wood, yet in the group coaching program for that reason. Like, it's just, like, we're so safe around each other.
Right. Yeah.
And I love that. So I mean, like, if I think if we can take that vulnerability into our marketing messages and really understand our customer, not from the like, this is what GPT told me that my hook and lead should be, like, let's talk about weight loss. Weight loss usually has very little to do with just wanting to lose weight. There's a lot of, issues
Well,
that
there
that go
yeah,
into that.
and
There's a,
and, you know,
it's a lot more emotional than just wanting to feel comfortable in your own skin. And when it's especially when you're dealing with compliance. If you're dealing with any kind of like, I'm the queen of restricted categories, let me tell you. I have sold guns, liquor, finance, weight loss. Like, if it's hard to sell online, I have done it. Um,
a gun
Emotion
girl in Ontario.
Literally, I was running the American Gun Association. I'm a Canadian girl. I was 26 years old running the American Gun Association. Can you imagine what, like, the members' meetings would have been like if they had found out that I was running it? I was, like, calling gun ranges and negotiating discounts so that I could send out coupon booklets that were nationwide to, all of the gun carriers. I don't own a gun. I've only ever shot a gun once in my life. Like, just not, it's not my vibe at all. But, like, when you learn how to become and write as someone else, it's very interesting. I became my grandfather when I was writing for, Survival Life, the American Gun Association, Family Protection Association, and it became super easy for me. But if we can take that vulnerability into our offers, when you're looking at compliance, like, you don't need to talk about the medical background of your health supplement, like, the story and the emotional component can be the replacement for all of those compliance restrictions. And it's just, you just need to peel back the onion enough and get through to that, like, that one, it just takes that one little button in there that you push, that, you don't need to be making all these big outrageous claims. It's
Right.
not ultimately, that's not what's made, like, that is not what ultimately is going to cause them to make a decision towards or away from you.
No, and I still see it on Facebook or social media. Everybody's like, "Well, this returned 302%. This did this. This did." Wild claims. You're gonna get nailed by the FCC and
Every marketer knows that crazy attracts crazy. And
yeah, but the thing
big
is
claims attract the three-letter agencies. We
do
never
you
want those.
really want crazy clients? Honestly, you want clients that align with your vision and your mission and yeah, you don't want crazy. I
You
call those people PETAs, pain in the asses, and honestly, I charge more for them, and sometimes the money's not even worth it.
Sometimes when I have clients I know, like, are non-believers or clients that I know are gonna be pains in the butts, like, every once in a while it backfires, but I usually quote them something that, like, is totally unreasonable. Just be like, "I'm just trying to it's a placebo offer." Like, I'm not really wanting them to take the offer. Every once in a while they do, and I'm like,
Yeah,
no.
you don't want it.
But that's how it rolls. But I mean, like, that's, I have noticed in my own businesses, but also in the clients that I work with and the businesses that I see, that, like, this emotional undertone and bringing that, especially in the age of AI, when people are just, like, trying to figure out how to master the technology. I'm trying to get the technology to master me. Like, I
Mhm.
really want to have it understand, like, what a human being thinks and does before starting on the technical pieces.
Yeah, and I think we do need to bring humanity back into our marketing, you
And
know?
I don't, I do see some other kind of some of the bigger name marketers out there doing it, but not enough.
No,
Not enough. everybody's, caught on the AI piece, or they're caught on the formula, and, they're, copy what I'm doing, or get my funnel maps and get my, take my exact funnel scripts and stuff like that. And it's like, that's that's a starting point, but
Mhm.
that's not the whole game.
Well,
And I think
for me, it was always about writing books, and not all my books have made money. Some have lost money, and people say, "Well, Rob, if they lose money, why do you continue to do it?" I do it because I like to write. It's my passion, and it's a physical thing that people can pick up and take with them. And I hate Kindle. I never read anything on Kindle.
you're a
But
paper book person.
I've never created a course. It's just I've bought courses. I think some courses are shit. I don't wanna have a shit course. So it's just I don't do it.
Yeah,
Um,
I think I've only ever done one course of my own before, and it just there was just something about sitting in front of a screen preaching, when it's just like, "Let me just get beside you and just do this with you," you know?
mhm,
Like, I can make YouTube videos and show you how to do a thing and tell you how easy it's gonna be, but, like, it's so much easier if it's just, like, join a community, like, follow along, and we'll do it together. I think that's, like, part of the reason why challenge funnels work so well,
mhm,
because it was a way to create a course in real time
right.
without having to stand in front of a screen and record yourself talking.
But I
'Cause it,
I
like
think that type of funnel system works great. I think when people Frankenstein their funnels together, no.
that's one of the biggest things, I think this was probably last week's, issue of Guess What Won, but congruency is one of those things that has kind of fallen to the wayside. So I think, one of the ways that I'm kind of getting around that right now, and what I mean by congruency is, like, someone clicks on your ad, they hit your landing page, and they're like, "Does this page belong to, like, am I in the right place?" Like, there's disconnects between, what you're promising and what you're delivering on each stage of your funnel. So how I'm kind of getting around this, on the AI side, is I'm actually using the Google Chrome extension called Go Full Screen,
Mm,
and I'm screenshotting my ad. I'm screenshotting each step of my funnel, so my opt-in page, my order, or my SLO, my order forms, my upsells, cross sells, whatever it happens to be, and changing the naming of each of those to step one, step two, step three, step four, like, through the whole steps. And I'm uploading them into GPT and asking it to analyze them in the correct order and tell me where there are drop-offs, inconsistencies, things that are confusing, or any places where it seems like the pages don't fit together.
mhm,
As far as, like, and then I also ask it, rather than telling it me, like, some people would go into GPT and be like, "Here's the purpose of my funnel. Can you tell me if my funnel is doing this thing?" I go the opposite, and I say, based on what you're reading, what do you think the purpose of this funnel is, and who do you think the avatar is? And I wait for GPT to tell me, without, because then you don't get the bias. It just
mm,
tells you what it sees, and then you can actually correct those things, because sometimes it tells you, like, who you've written the offer for, and you're like, "Oh crap, that's not who I'm like this should be writing for." And then you can correct it. But
mhm,
it'll also, if you follow that step and just say, analyze all of the funnel steps in the correct order, tell me where there are inconsistencies, tell me where it's confusing, tell me where I've made a promise and not delivered on it, tell me where there are open loops I didn't close, all of those things. And it'll say, like, your ad copy is talking about this, this, and this, but your landing page is talking about this. You haven't even introduced this, this, or this. And then you can see, like, you're having three different conversations and expecting someone who doesn't even know you to be able to follow along with your ADD thoughts through your
mhm,
funnel. And that's where you said, like, when you're Frankensteining funnels together, there is a way to tie pretty much anything together if you know how to do it correctly. But using a tool, this is where using AI as a tool rather than a creator is super beneficial, but you have to know exactly what you're looking for, and you have to know how to avoid the biases, which is the
well,
really challenging
the
piece.
other day I looked at a website. It was a WordPress website. 63 plugins. And I said to the person, "Why do you have 63 plugins?" "Well, we needed this, 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 this." And I said, "Yeah, but you can probably do all that with 15 plugins, simplify your website. Some of this shit's not even working because the plugins are overriding each other."
Well, that's the Band-Aid effect, right? Well,
Yeah,
this
and
stopped doing this, so then I had to get this plugin to do this, 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 and then you've got 3 different plugins that, like, one plugin probably does all the things you need with
so
updates.
I put all the plugins through ChatGPT and we simplified everything and it told me which ones did which one and I could delete some stuff and I actually had ChatGPT create plugins that wouldn't break and would stabilize the website, and it took like 10 minutes.
That's amazing. Yeah,
It's like
I would not have thought to do that, to upload all of the plugins into GPT.
yeah,
SEO
because
is so not we have so much to learn from each other because SEO is so not my game.
yeah.
I am paid traffic and offers all
Well,
the way.
and we could talk all day long, and but we've already gotten about almost an hour into this, and it's just this is great. I mean, it's great stuff. We should do a part 2 or 3 or 4.
Yeah.
But, the how do people find you? Where do they go?
I mean, following me, oh, Steve is gonna be so proud. It's Amanda K. Dobson on all of the channels you consume your social media. So that was like the first thing when I started working with Steve Sims. He said, like, your name is different on all of your social media platforms. So you need to go through and standardize it, even if it's not ideal. They need to be like it needs to be Amanda K. Dobson on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, or whatever you're happening to be, it needs to be there. So you can also go to guesswhat1.com and subscribe to the free newsletter. It's really fun. So what I do is I work with clients, and I actually did a call for volunteers to do some split testing with me on my Facebook. And what I do is I run I'll go through my process of creating a hypothesis, analyzing your data to figure out what the problems are, hypothesizing a split test. We actually run it together, and then I share the results inside of Guess What One in kind of a gamified way. And then I usually share what I call lessons from the lab, where I do a little bit of teaching, where I'll talk about like the 3 a.m. letter, some of the principles that are the foundation of what I do. So it's a really great resource for marketers that maybe need a little boost in conversion, but don't want to hire someone like me to do coaching. The newsletter is a great place to start, but that's the easiest way to find me.
So it's guess what one?
Guess what one? Yeah.
And 1 is number or 1 spelled
No,
out?
rest written out. Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
And
Yeah, so
there's always tests running on that offer, so don't copy that offer unless you've read a version of the newsletter and you know which one's running, because 'cause I'm constantly testing different variations of that offer.
there you go, everybody. This is she's so smart, so smart. So,
Thank
go over to and she has a website, amandakdobson.com, as well as her socials, and, just learn from her. And yes, we talked about conversion rate optimization, but in reality, it's community rate optimization because that's what we all want to achieve as an entrepreneur. We want a community.
Absolutely.
And so I want to thank Amanda for being here, and I want to thank everybody for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks, everyone.
Adios.